I see everybody who I'm expecting, I think. Sean, is there anybody else need to wait for the call? For the meeting? All right, let's call the meeting of the Infrastructure Committee to order. It's 1 p.m. Let's see. First item on our agenda is to approve the minutes. Anybody, I sent the minutes out yesterday over email. Anybody have any comments about the minutes? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the Public Works update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hope everyone's doing well today. Just wanted to give you a brief update on all things Public Works crew. If you've noticed, our Public Works crew has been actively installing the annual holiday decorations downtown. We made the decision to go ahead and do that this year in the hopes that it would be a cheerful thing for everybody to take a look at during this awful time. So that should be completed hopefully by the end of this week. And hopefully everybody's will enjoy once those decorations get fully installed and the lights get turned on. If you've noticed, the street sweeping is continuing to go on. We've got some feedback from residents so far. I just spoke to a gentleman over on Woodside Avenue this morning, just talking about how they're really appreciating the street sweeping, and had a really good conversation about one of my future goals with Public Works Department is this continued maintenance, preventative maintenance aspect. And one of the things that he was concerned about was leaves in storm drains. And so I told him that, yes, that is also one of the issues that I like to bring up with our Public Works crew. And we have a lot of storm drains. I don't know the number off the top of my head right now. And I just encouraged the resident, as well as any other residents who are tuning into this, is to, we can't do it all the time. We do our best to go and clean out the storm drains. And we really do want to rely on residents to, if you see a storm drain that's clogged with leaves, do your best to get a shovel and clean that storm drain out. Is not lift the, up. We're talking about surface level, not lifting the grate and getting in there. Just remove as much of the debris as possible. If it's too much, just give the office a call or send us an email, and we'd put that on the Public Works priority list. Something that I would like to continue doing on an annual basis, especially if we know that some heavy rain is coming, and especially this time of the year with a lot of leaves in the road. Speaking of street sweeping, we've been recording the tonnages, and unfortunately I haven't had a chance to calculate all of those tonnages yet and what that means for our stormwater management. We have been busy preparing for the pop-up bike lane, which is set to kick off the end of this week. The Public Works crew is out securing materials today. It should be, you're going to start seeing some painting, some measuring starting happening tomorrow. Most of the deployment on Thursday and Friday. And I believe the unofficial kickoff is 5 p.m. by 5 p.m. on Friday, and there's going to be a bigger event Saturday morning. So if anybody's around Saturday morning, come check it out. I'm excited to announce that the borough is now in possession of 2 EV charging stations. It completely, it was not what I was expecting, right? It came in like what, 20 different boxes, right? It's like, oh, okay, that makes total sense from a shipping standpoint. I was expecting it was going to be pre-installed. It was going to be this big freight thing. No, it came via FedEx. And so we have all of the materials ready to go. I'm still trying to coordinate an electrician that was scheduled to come in and gave us a proposal. If you've been trying to get anyone to work on your house these days, any contractors, you know what I'm talking about. It's really difficult to find somebody who has availability. So I'm beginning to be the bug in their phone system, calling them every other day and asking when they're going to be here. So that's the next step. We have all of the EV charging stations. We then need to get the electrician on site to install those 2 locations. I believe you have on the agenda tonight some potential ordinance changes for those parking spaces. I know the Solicitor Walco has forwarded around some potential language for that. And 420 Conway, I would defer to Eric on any of those updates. And that's everything that I have on my notes. Any questions?
Yeah, so are we going to get credit under the PRP for reducing our waste by doing the street sweeping? That's sound like that's what you were suggesting.
Yeah, so that's the intention. That's why we're recording those tonnages, and I'll be coordinating with Eric once I get a chance to get those tonnages recorded. And we're trying to right now. Every time we take a load over to the Lower Marion transfer station, we get a dump slip, and I've been trying to get Public Works crew to write on those slips what streets that's related to, so we can start linking geographies to that also. We're getting there. Some weeks are better than others, but we're starting to look at the schedule of street sweeping and be able to quantify how much material is coming from each of those street sweeping routes.
That's great. Can we pause for administrative detail? So Carol Marie Scanlon has asked to join the meeting. I don't know if there's other people waiting in the waiting room. So she's been unable to get in. And I also had a request from the Civic Association that we start recording these meetings from the host end, just to be a backup in case the Civic Association video goes wrong. So apologize for bringing this up in the once the meeting started, but great. Thanks for starting a recording. And I see, hopefully, anybody else in the waiting room, Sean?
No.
Okay, great. All right, and as usual, we'll have public comment at the end of the meeting. Okay, and then I guess the other question about the street sweeping is, are we coordinating that at all with the parking? Is there any?
Yeah, good question. Forgot to bring that up. So we're still in that trial period. We wanted to give that a month or two to see how it works, how much tonnage we're getting, get any feedback from the crew. And then once we get the schedule solidified, we're going to publicize that, and we're going to make that available to the residents. And we understand that we can't get 100% traffic compliance, parking compliance, but if we make the schedule available online and publicize that, we can at least get, hopefully get those who are around and have the ability to move their cars to do so on those days. And we'll try to have as fixed dates as possible for each street. So that's the ultimate goal.
Any other questions? Sean, Ron? All right.
Just
Okay.
one thing, Fred. I don't know, Matt, if this is for you or for Sean, but the energy switch, the power switch, that happened already, right? Or you can tell me later.
Yeah, it has gone. The paperwork has gone through. I don't recall seeing an invoice from the provider yet, but that's just an administrative issue. But we have signed all of that, all of the paperwork, and it's been submitted to our energy provider.
Okay, great.
Okay. Well, in that case, don't have it on our agenda, but Eric, do you want to give us a quick update on the 420 Conway repair?
Conway, yeah, our repairs there. Yes, so the contractor is out there. They're about halfway through the work now. The first step was to dig up and repair that section of storm sewer. When they dug it up, they made some interesting discoveries. They found that the pipe went about the spot where it broke. The pipe went uphill over a water main. So it was not flowing properly. They also had discovered at some point in the past, some kind of repair was made to the pipe by sticking a piece of metal pipe over top of the pipe just to cover a hole. So they were able to line that section of pipe that had a break in it where the metal had been put over it. They put a new structure in to lower the pipe below the water main and have tied it in to the storm sewer manhole in Conway. That is all done. They were pouring concrete along the side, and I believe today we're pouring the apron at the end of 415 Conway. And then once that wraps up, the last step would be the final paving for the road. So we're in progress, finally over the hump and towards the end at this point.
And I saw that we've also got a proposal now for scoping out the rest of our sewers, or the rest of our, I forget which. I saw it in the, it's coming, it's in the, your report in the business
inventorying, yes, mapping the storm sewer and sanitary sewer systems of the borough, yes.
Okay, so what's council's role in that project, Sean or Matt?
Funding it.
All right, so I mean, are we? It's coming up next year, right?
Yeah,
we're doing it.
yeah.
So is
borough engineer service fees is where it would be billed.
okay. So it's already baked in.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
And I think that would be a joint. Probably the best way it's going to work would be a joint effort between Pannoni and between the borough staff. To getting and building the borough's GIS system out. It's probably going to be the best. Some method between a collaborative method.
And once we get more into the details, Eric, and we get more into the pace and the costing and how it rolls out, because we have to be iterative about this. The other option the borough will have is to use some sewer fund money in the maintenance and planning line item to pay for it as well. If we have I think the borough has an opportunity to accelerate that capture of information into next year and into the spring. It should consider doing that. We've had, knock on wood, a pretty good run lately of maintenance and planning with the sanitary sewer system, and that's just a really roundabout way of saying there's cash in the fund. So if you have let's say you have a bad year next year, something happens that you weren't expecting and you need to make some repairs, we do have cash. The borough does have cash in reserve. It's in a better position from a sewer fund perspective than like it is from the general fund. So things to consider. I'll make sure Matt's aware of all of that. And thank you, Eric, for putting that together.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would make sense to use the dedicated sewer money that can't be used for a lot of things rather than using the general fund money. But that's it's just what it looks like to me. Okay, great. And it's good to have that because that's going to allow us then to proceed with the road repairs. Go ahead, Michelle.
No, I mean, so I'm just to circle back on this. Is that what we're saying that we are going to do? We are going to use sewer fund money first, or in some proportion, or what's the formula? What's the strategy for how much we use sewer fund money and how much we use general fund to do this?
Strategy is to start with general fund dollars to pay for what would be an increase in our borough, service engineering fees, and then see, for lack of a better word, see how it goes, and see if investing more money in it in the first or second quarter of next year via the sewer fund is a smart thing to do, if that would accelerate the data collection. We won't know until we start doing it.
Eric,
Yeah.
about how long do you think this would take? I mean, I know you can't give a firm, but I mean, just a range. Is this a several year project, a 6 to 12 month, or what do you think?
So there's really two components to the process. The first step is basically gathering all of the GIS data, and you basically put it together into a system that allows you to go out and field collect. So you prepare all your documentation, and have everything set up, and then there's manual time just going out and visiting all the inlets, all the storm sewers. I think that's a rough approximate approximately, it's about, I guess setting it up is like, a week or two worth of effort. And then the actual field collection could be 80, 100 hours of time in the field by some individual, either a borough employee or a Pannoni employee. But that pace would really be figured out once you're there and trying to track down, pipe connections and information.
And this is where the advantage of having a public works crew member intimately involved comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Being able, tap into that, pun intended, the institutional knowledge of those locations.
Yeah.
Right.
How many 415 Conway Avenues are lurking out there in other blocks and streets in the borough? And we found, just for your information, we found a couple years ago a private shared sanitary sewer line on private property. So imagine a trunk line servicing multiple homes, and it had been completely installed. There was no map of it, and it was creating problems for multiple residents all at the same time. So I imagine there's going to be issues like that need to be understood and tackled when they come up.
I guarantee you that's correct.
Seems like a third world country thing where you got, your private, somebody's tapping into the electric or the sewer line. That's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's find those. Okay. All right. Thanks, Eric. All right. Next item on the agenda is going back to the stormwater minimum exception. So we've talked about this before in prior meetings, the idea that right now the threshold for the borough to look at new construction or a large scale like driveway project is 1,500 square feet, and there's the potential to bring that number down so that the borough examines some other projects, like for instance a new house had gone up and was not eligible for a stormwater review. I think Eric had said that in his experience, other municipalities have it set at 500 to 1,000 for sort of an expedited review, and 1,000 plus for a full review. So hopefully people have had some time to consider. I'd like to move forward with a recommendation to council if we can come to an agreement here. So, I mean, I think to start us off, I think the based on what Eric was saying, and based on what Sean and Matt were saying about sort of the amount of workload this would generate, I think that the 500 to 1,000 expedited, 1,000 plus full seems like a reasonable goal, a reasonable change to make that would improve our stormwater situation here.
And just to be clear what we're talking about, so let's say, forget 500 to 1,000 would represent the addition of new impervious coverage, regardless of whether it was an addition, a driveway, a new construction. It's not an earth disturbance measurement, right? It's the addition of new impervious. I think I remember that was right, but I want to make sure I understand.
Right. So it would be defined as new or replacement impervious coverage on a property. So the addition of impervious coverage or the removal of existing coverage and replacing that coverage. Now, of course, you can always make other exemptions, but generally it's stated as new or replacement impervious coverage on a property from the time of adoption of the ordinance.
But it would not apply to, say, resurfacing your driveway, if that's all you're doing.
Usually you have an except if you're not digging up, right, if you're just rehabilitating a driveway that's dilapidated or put a new surface of asphalt on it, that generally does not count. Ripping it up and putting brand new material and brand new concrete driveway instead of an old asphalt usually would, but maintenance of a driveway, no.
And the consequences of that regulation, Eric, are that the applicant would then have to put in place some BMP's best management practices to deal with the net difference in the water quality. The water quality volume would be the two-year storm difference.
So generally, for usually the threshold, if you're going to, let's just operate on the 500 to 1,000 and 1,000 plus. So if you're in the range of 500 square feet to 1,000 square feet, generally that operates under a simplified method in which it's really a prescribed formula of if you put in, 600 square feet, it's a chart and it says you need to manage this many gallons of water. And it usually comes out to, I think it's 1 inch of rainfall over that proposed impervious surface. And then it has laid out methods of how people can do that. So you can use, it's a simplified cistern from the downspout to your house, an infiltration trench for the water sheeted off from an area, and then infiltrates into the ground, usually with some stone below. So it lays it out for like a homeowner can understand how to do it, or a contractor can carry it out for them. And then once you get above the 1,000 square feet, it would be no different than your current code, which is set at 2,000 square feet, where it requires, an actual engineered study, like you currently would require.
And those studies and plans will be reviewed by someone in your office as part of the permit issuance process.
Correct.
So yes, this would be adding, I guess, a burden to the homeowner or whoever's doing the construction, but it would be resulting in less stormwater runoff for the borough from new development, which I think is a desirable goal. Rob, you have anything to add on this?
Eric, do you have any sense of the costs? What would it mean for a homeowner to do a 600 square foot?
Put in a system like that.
Yeah.
There is a cost associated with it. So there's the permit review cost, which from my experience is generally, depending on the municipality, they set it, but generally a few $100s because it's review time involved with it. And then the actual construction, I installed on my own property 2 years ago, or last year, some stormwater pits where I put the downspouts, into an excavated pit with some stone. I did the work myself, but it still cost me a few $100s in materials. So there is a fee. There is a cost associated with it. So, it could be $1,000 plus to get the system installed.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Fred, I would support a tiered system, because it seems to me the costs go up over 1,000 because you have to pay for the fully engineered plan, the cost for the homeowner. And we're trying to minimize the costs in that 500 to 1,000. For the homeowner, it's a way of setting up a tiered system.
Yeah, basically that 1,000 would only trigger for a large addition or like a tear down or something. I mean, it's shouldn't trigger very often with.
I think one of the reasons that this came to our attention was that there was, I believe, a new construction that was just under 2,000 or something like that, and it was clearly had a significant impact in the context of these small yards with the houses close together, and so I think that lowering that threshold, because that's in Narberth, 2,000 square foot is footprint coverage is pretty generous. I mean, we have small lots, and I think that lowering that is definitely a good plan.
Correct, you're right. So that the house that was the tear down reconstruction, that was about 1,700 square feet of new impervious coverage. So they were able to build a house without a stormwater management basin.
Yeah, I mean, I think that given that nobody here is raising any red flags, Eric, you obviously have a lot of experience here. This is in line with other boroughs with a similar built environment. I think we should just maybe move this to council and maybe ask what needs to happen to effectuate this. Is this an ordinance?
Mhm.
I guess it's a modification to the stormwater ordinance, right? It's an amendment.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you want to bring this up
Yes.
at workshop to
I'll,
discuss, and then after that, if everybody approves, we move it on to John to draft? Or
Sounds good. I'll check in with Aaron and John and see what we can do. All right. I mean, I think that going from if we're going to keep the full engineering review, that's just a number, right? Going from 2,000 square feet to 1,000 square feet would be easy. But changing, setting up an expedited process for the smaller projects is more complicated. So.
Oh no, I'm not suggesting we should. I didn't mean to suggest we should whip by that. I think that makes sense to have that tiered review. I mean that Eric has recommended. I think it's a good idea. And
yeah.
So.
All right. It sounds like we have consensus here. So I will talk to Aaron and try to move it up to full council. All right. Thanks, everybody. We've been talking about this for a while. And then the other ordinance that we're looking at is for the EV parking spaces. So since we're putting in the EV chargers, we're going to need to establish some regulations for the parking spaces associated with them, as Matt mentioned. So we had John Walco draft an ordinance based on discussions that Rob and I had. So basically, it's going to say that the proposed ordinance is that the parking spaces associated with the EV chargers are for people who are charging their vehicles only. And I think what's in there right now is that if somebody if somebody's there for more than a day, or isn't hooked up to it, we're going to assume they're not charging their vehicle. So we might be able to tighten that a little bit. But the basic idea is that if you're not charging your vehicle, there's a fine of $20, which is in line with our other no parking fines.
Yeah, I mean, the way John drafted it, he said if the vehicle, they're rebuttably presumed to not be connected for the purpose of charging if they have not been continuously and electrically connected to the charger, which presumes that it's possible to ascertain whether they're electrically connected from the outside, which you can with my car, but I don't know if you can with every Eevee if there's a light, that shows I'm charging, I'm done. And then the other piece of it was, or has been continuously and electrically connected to the charger for longer than 24 hours. So if you've actually been drawing current for longer than 24 hours, I don't even know how that's possible. So those are, that's the way it's drafted. And it brings a lot of questions to my mind, but the most basic of which is how, is this even in, Matt, how Robin does the enforcement. How, is this a reasonable thing to enforce? You probably saw the draft, because I wondered how that works.
Yeah, I did read over the draft. I don't know the answer to that. And, the enforcement part of it, we would certainly need to bring in John Gallagher. He's got the best eyes on how Robin does it. I kind of know how it's done, but, it's pointing to a much larger issue that the Parking Study Task Force is going to be looking at, and how we actually enforce parking. And it's going to go beyond just the EV charging station. So I think, if we can make it as concise and objective as possible, that will make enforcement easier. And there's only going to be one uptown, so it's not like it's not going to be proliferating, all downtown. So I think it's only going to be 2 spaces in an enforced parking area. So it's not that much. From my perspective, it's not that much effort for the parking enforcement officer to adapt to that.
Would it be crazy to just sort of shelve the ordinance until, I don't want to shelve the ordinance that sets out a lot of specific parameters, that we then sort of feel obligated to enforce fairly and evenly, or people get upset, right? Until we have the Parking Study Task Force's feedback and council takes up broadly looking at parking and parking downtown and metering. And then, keep this folded into that work at that time with more information, and maybe for the time being, just have a EV parking only, like they have at Whole Foods, where it says it but nobody enforces it. And you know, go ahead. What do you think?
Michelle, I had the same sentence highlighted. That's section 33. I think that's kind of the rub of the whole ordinance. And you know, to my mind, we're trying to incentivize residents to purchase EVs, to use EVs, you know, and so we want these spaces to be available in a regular way. You know, we don't want, we're trying to prevent, you know, someone just sitting there. So my car also has that light. I wonder if we could refine the language of that sentence to make it easier for Robin to identify. And I guess my fear is that we put in the stations and the spaces are occupied by non-EVs, or they're, you know, that we don't have a way of kind of turning the spaces over quickly so that they can be used.
Yeah, no, I guess my question is, do we need to pass a separate standalone ordinance now, or is it sufficient to have thought through it, spent the time to talk to Robin and John and figure out the best way to do this, and then pass it along with comprehensive parking? But we don't, I mean, we could do it separately. I just sometimes am mindful of just sort of trying to save resources, but
I mean, what's the timeline on parking? Isn't that more of like a 4 or 5 months timeline?
yeah.
All right, Matt, I saw you had your hand up there.
Yeah, Michelle, I like where you're going with that. I usually take the approach of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it quite yet. Meaning, same thing with the bike lane. We're doing something completely different. We haven't done this before, right? And so oftentimes I feel like, and I'm guilty of this too, of like trying to overanalyze something and think every angle through before it even gets deployed. And I think there might be there might be value in waiting, even if the EV stations get set up. We've already are experiencing through COVID much lower demand in parking. So parking is not a problem uptown. Let's install it and let's see what happens. And if we're finding that people are abusing it and that there are cars that are parked there all day illegally, you know, we do have ways to enforce that internally through our parking system as well. We can issue warnings. Right? We can create a new warning in the parking system with just a couple of keystrokes, start ticketing those cars. And what that enables us to do then in the system is keep track of repeat offenders. Right. And so that would give us some more data. So maybe that is a more sound approach, and then have that as a more comprehensive discussion with the parking task force to talk about how do we manage parking, not just for meters, but for all sorts, electric vehicles included. I kind of like that idea.
Are the spots on Essex metered currently when it's going in? So those are, and I think the idea, I'm not sure we ever discussed this, but are we gonna keep those metered?
I don't know. I wasn't involved in that process. The idea that I'm thinking of I don't know. I know Lansdale has some in a metered parking lot. Maybe if I have time, I'll walk by it tonight and see what they did. See if they kept the meters on there, or as an incentive to park your electric vehicle, maybe they removed the meter since you're going to be paying for the electricity.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
So
Yeah.
I assume we know the answer to this. It's so obvious, but maybe not. I mean, it's not the case that the EV chargers themselves show whether and how long a car's been continuously charging for. That would be awesome, right? If it was like, if it showed, you know, I'm in a 2-hour charge cycle when, you know, once somebody unplugs and plugs back in, it resets. That doesn't happen, does it? That would be great.
I believe
well, there you go.
There is going to be a whole a management aspect to this, a remote management, just like our parking system. We'll be able to log in. Granted, I haven't seen it, but I've been blessed with being the one who's going to be the site manager here. So I'm going to be intimately involved here rather shortly once the system gets up and running. So I can't speak intelligently about it yet, but my understanding is that yes, that level of detail does exist.
Well, that might make enforcement a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and also, Michelle, you know how these charging stations, you can set it up to communicate with your car. Like if you're the car owner, you can be notified when you're done charging, so you know to go pick up your car. So my understanding is it has all that capability. But I guess, if we're going to go that route and shelve the ordinance, then what can we do in terms of signage?
Well,
To make it
before
clear.
before we totally shelve the ordinance, there was another aspect to it that John also thought was necessary, and that is just establishing that we're going to charge for electricity. It's going to, go into a borough fund, and then the borough council is going to set the rate. So, I think his suggestion might be to have that in place, even if we're not going to have the rest of it in place. I forget where that is in the legislation. It's in there somewhere.
Is that the piece, Fred, that John said we could do by resolution? We could set the rate.
I think we need to establish it in an ordinance, and then we need to say what's going to happen in an ordinance, and then we can set the amount by resolution later. So the amount can be changed. It's like we have some other fees that are going that way after the recodification project that, it just says that whatever will be set by council, and then council sets it by resolution afterwards. So John felt that should be in place before we start charging people for electricity. Okay. I don't know. Well, if we do that, we have to advertise it twice, don't we? Or can we just amend it the second? I mean, basically, if we're going to pass an ordinance establishing rates, and then we're going to go back later and pass an ordinance covering parking, is that going to cost us a bunch, Sean or Matt?
To that point, the parking ordinance needs an overhaul regardless. So that's going to come down the pipe soon. I'm expecting that that's going to be a result of the parking study task force. And so I would like to see, instead of having a separate ordinance just with EV parking, I would like that looped in and baked into an overhaul of the parking ordinance. Our parking ordinance is a mess, and that needs to be completely redone. So I'd like to see it incorporated into that.
Okay, and that's a project for next year once we get the parking study data.
Yep.
Is that a priority for next year, or is that a maybe for next year? Okay.
I think it's a priority. I've believed that ever since the codification project, as it relates to direct revenue sources, meaning fines. It is connected to how parking is enforced, and we really do need to clean that chapter up so the enforcement can be that much better, not just internally in the borough, but at the district court.
All right. So what I'm hearing is that there's a desire to see how this thing works out before making changes, and that potentially we can fold it into the parking ordinance for next year.
But your point and John's point is correct. I don't think we are authorized to set a fee unless we have, pass. I mean, you can set the fee by resolution, but you have to have authorized the ability to collect that fee by some ordinance or amendment of an existing ordinance. So,
so let's
I think we should probably talk about whether or not we need to do that now or whether that can wait 6 months. I mean, I think we kind of want to charge for park.
Yeah,
I think you don't want to. It's always a bad look when you give it away for free and then start charging. Nobody likes.
It's hard to go that way.
I mean, they should be in, by the end of the year, right? We've got them, so it's just a matter of installing them. So we want to have something in place when they're in place. I think that's why I was looking into this. Okay, so let's keep the fee part. There's one other aspect to that allows private landowners to put up their own EV charging spots, but they have to enforce it on their own. They're just allowed to put up a sign, which I think is innocuous. I think it's good. I think that we've asked some of the new developments to put in charging spots. Yeah, we ought to allow them to put up a sign as well.
So Fred, what about a sign then? I mean, wouldn't we need a sign for these, like EVs, cars only, 2 hours? I don't know.
Yeah, I'll take a crack at that. I think it should be a combination of both signage as well as painting. And that's something that we can work with the Public Works crew to develop. I've seen some EV charging parking painting that they just paint the whole 2 spots so you can't miss it. You know, some could argue that, oh, I didn't see the sign, but if you paint the entire pavement with, you know, green or whatever color you want to color it, and, you know, stencil EV charging, it's really difficult to challenge that.
Okay, good.
And I don't think we need an ordinance to put up signs. I think we can put up signs as necessary. I mean, within highway safety limits, but you know, we have broad latitude there. All right. So, anything else on this, Michelle?
No, I just think somebody should follow up with John
Okay, I'll do that.
about the most efficient way. I mean, I mean, it's probably not. I mean, you could shoehorn this into another ordinance that we're moving forward. It's such a small thing. I mean, an ordinance can cover multiple sections of your code. It doesn't always have to relate to one thing. You could have an ordinance to do. I think we may be moving forward to zoning omnibus. It could literally be wordy, but it could have and authorizing the borough of Narberth, you know, to collect fees for. I mean, it could be probably shoved in there with something else for advertising. But we should probably ask John. So do you
Zoning,
want
et cetera,
somebody should
omnibus.
do that?
Yeah, I'll check.
I
I've
mean,
been going back and forth about this, so I'll go ahead with that.
ask if we could do that.
Severing. All right. Then the last item is the pop-up bike lane, which Matt's already partly discussed. So yeah, that's going in real soon now, with a launch on Friday, weather permitting, which it looks like it's permitting. And then I think I'll be out there Saturday morning. I think some of the DVRPC folks will be out there Saturday morning just to look at how people are using it and answer any questions. Sean, Rob, you're welcome to come on out if you feel like it. I don't know what the weather's going to be like. I haven't actually looked at the temperature.
I just got a new bike, so I'll bring it down
There you
on
go.
Saturday morning.
Nice. Anybody have any questions about it or anything? I mean, we're going to be, you know, there's a survey we'll be handing out. I think we'll have some physical surveys to hand out. There's also an online, you know, be a QR code to scan and take you to the survey to discuss, you know, what people are thinking about it. And the cycling club has done a great job in being a good partner and passing out information about this. And I know Matt and Sean have also done a lot of work to get the word out, and it's looking good.
Yeah, if I could just jump in and just thank everybody who's been involved so far, especially Public Works crew. They've really, you know, taken it up and are really into it. And you know, the questions that they have asked, it's been pretty cool. So they're taking ownership over it. It's exciting to see. Just thanks to the cycling club for all of their work. Jean and her graphic design has been awesome. That's made our lives a lot easier with, you know, we're providing the facilities, but, you know, sometimes we get bogged down with, oh my God, we got to design something graphically. So just thanks for everybody who's involved. DVRPC been great also. So hopefully it goes off without a hitch, and hopefully see everybody there Friday or Saturday.
All right, and that'll give us a lot of information and help us do future planning projects. I think that's it for our agenda. Anybody have anything they want to add before I go to public comment? Rob?
Just an announcement that the Shade Tree Commission will be planting Saturday morning. We're planting 38 trees throughout the borough. So we're going to be doing that. We're starting at 9 a.m. and we're replacing some of the trees that didn't survive the transplant around the train station. And Matt has helped connect me with Mike from the Public Works crew is going to help me pick them up on Friday. So.
Yeah, thanks, Rob, for bringing that up. That slipped my mind. Yeah, we've got that going. We will be providing hand tools Saturday morning. The Public Works garage will be open. Also, thank you. You sparked a memory. Had a request that there are some leftover trees for this planting, and Rick Traley's contacted me and asked if it would be okay if they planted a tree at Sabine Park. He's been in contact with the Friends of Sabine Park and the also the Parks and Rec Committee chairperson, Krista Staub, and they are all in support of it. I am uncomfortable giving the green light as it's not my property. It is the borough's property. And so I really wanted to bring this up to this committee and get your take on it. And if you wanted it to be forwarded to council to talk about tomorrow night, or if the committee gives their blessing to plant one tree at Sabine Avenue Park.
So I'm totally willing to accept the guidance of the rec board and the Friends of Sabine Park and the Shade Tree Commission. So I'm fine with it, and I don't think we need to bring it to council.
Very good. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Anything else? All right, let's go to public comment. So I see somebody here. I'm assuming that's Carol Marie.
Yes, that is. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
All right. I'm wondering if this committee has the results of the surveys that were taken at the meetings for 201 Sabine.
Not yet, and I think we will be discussed here before it goes to full council, so probably next month.
All right, and then when is the next public meeting? When is the next community interaction for what the public wants to have done at the property?
I don't think I don't think another meeting has been scheduled. Like I said, we're still waiting to hear back the survey results. So nothing is happening on the project at the moment.
Has Elizabeth Beckett sent her report?
I haven't received anything. Sean is shaking his head, so not yet.
All right, and will there be other meetings scheduled for the public?
Sean, you're muted, Sean.
It was our intention when we started this that the workshop meetings would be the right forum to discuss the results of the three meetings we've had leading up to it. We got so much information from the meeting on the 27th. We haven't even finished compiling it all. We want to get that information on a web page. Beth's not ready to talk about it with council. So we're just at the moment a little overwhelmed with the volume of information that we've gotten. So I think to answer your question, Carol Marie, it'll be at a workshop meeting. The next workshop meeting is 2 weeks from tomorrow, right? Or is it 3 weeks from tomorrow? No, 3 weeks from tomorrow, which will be the 4th of December. It's possible it could be discussed then. If not then, probably at the January workshop meeting.
Now, when you're talking about the workshop, is that just council talking, or is that a workshop that invites the public comment, or the public, is it going to be a dedicated 201 Sabine meeting? Like there's been other workshops that have been addressing other things.
I understand. That's a decision that council and the president can make, but it was my understanding that it would just be a sort of normal workshop meeting that we have on that first Wednesday, but a significant amount of the time of that meeting would be dedicated to this topic. And that's all I know at this point.
So then you're saying there's most probably not going to be other public meetings that will ask the community for their input on this project?
There won't be other public meetings like the one we had on the 27th as of right now. Council could change its mind and do one if it wanted to, but as of right now, no.
Now, after the RFP is sent, will there be more meetings to discuss what the public would like to have done at the property?
I mean, I can't, I don't.
Yes.
Yes, council's not going to make a decision about the fate of the property without, more public involvement. So we're not yet close to that. We're not yet at the point of generating the RFP. So that's still a ways out.
Have any developers approached the borough to ask about the property?
Not to my knowledge.
No one else? No developers, Sean or Matt?
No, they're shaking their heads.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. I don't see anyone else here for public comment, so thanks everyone, and have a good week.
Thanks. Bye bye, everyone.